Hey, hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon. Nice to meet you. I hope you're doing so very well. Today I am bringing you my mid-year book freakout tag, but it's kind of late, but it's kind of okay because it's still entertaining to watch, and that's the most important thing, right? That's what we're all here for. So let's dive right into some of these questions. I love this tag. This tag kind of just encapsulates your year of reading so far, and that is so much fun to watch for me and so much fun for me to film for you guys. So I'm going to be referring to my handy dandy catch all journal. So if you see me glancing around, this is what I'm glancing at. The first question is, how is your reading year going so far? And my reading year so far has been just fun. Like, I have kind of edged into mood reading this year instead of having loads of TBRs. So I've just been picking up anything and everything that I want to read while I've been in the mood for it right then, right there. And what a difference it makes. It kind of takes the stress off. Like, not that TBRs are stressful. Well, sometimes they can be, but it's not that TBRs are stressful, so to say. I just think that having the ability to just pick up what I want when I want and not think about the books I said I was going to read makes it so much more fun. So, one of my goals this year was to read a new release every month, and I've managed to complete that. I have read six 2023 releases so far this year, and I will read another one before the end of July. So, I want to stay consistent. So, 12 new releases in the year read is a good amount. Considering I probably read about 60 books a year, this is a good amount for me. It still gives me time to get to my backlist and be able to pick up other things and complete other goals. So far this year, 47% of my reading has been from my physical TBR, which is a goal that I make every year. I always want my reading to, by the end of the year, to be 50% physical books that I already own. Um, the other 50% can be audiobooks, Kindle Unlimited, Scribd books, but I want 50% of my reading every year to be the books I already own, because that's one of my big priorities, is to take my TBR down and be able to move out books and swap books and unhaul books and buy new books. But I can only buy new books when I unhaul because I don't have any more space. I've read across 7 genres, and my top 3 have been horror, romance, and thriller. And this is quite interesting because I wanted to read more horror this year, but it feels like I haven't read much horror. But considering it's made my top 3 genres read so far, I mean, I must be reading more than what I feel like I'm reading. Romance and thriller are genres I read quite consistently anyway, so no surprise that they are on the top 3. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year, and I have to give it to The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn series, and I bought this a while back thinking when I have more time, I may try it and I may decide that I want to try sample Brandon Sanderson's work, because this was my first foray into Sanderson, and I do not regret it. I flew through this. It was slow burn, political, character development was amazing. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the third act action. Like, this just made me remember why I fell in love with fantasy in the first place. Like, when I first started reading the way that I do now, I read a lot of fantasy, urban fantasy, fantasy romance, fantasy, YA fantasy. It was what I mostly got into. But then gradually over the years, I've edged into like thrillers and romances, and I kind of started neglecting fantasy a little bit because in the back of my brain, I was like, well, like, fantasy for me is like a dedication, especially when the books are so big, and especially adult fantasy, which I haven't had much experience with. So, like, this was a new found love, and it reminded me just how much I loved fantasy when I first started reading, and how and it was great to see that a fantasy could still pull me in and just get its claws into me the way that this book did. And I cannot recommend this enough. Not that anyone doesn't. I mean, Sanderson is well known, but I do recommend this one now that I've read it, and it is at the best spot so far of the year. The next question is the best sequel you've read this year. I originally had Clown in a Cornfield 2, Friendo Lives, as this on this spot, which I highly recommend that duology. For a YA, it goes where you want horror to go, and it really surprised me and made me a fan. But I finished The Well of Ascension last night, so I would feel like I would be lying and cheating myself to say that this was not my favorite sequel this year. I immediately jumped on this after I finished The Final Empire. No regrets. Gave this 5 stars, just like The Final Empire. Great sequel. The third act absolutely killed me. And now I'm just waiting to jump onto the third book. So, yeah, The Well of Ascension. I mean, if I hadn't finished this last night, then I would have put Clown in a Cornfield. But because I finished this last night, I I can't lie to you guys. This was amazing. I had so much fun with this. The next question is favorite reread, and for this, I'm going with Scythe by Neil Schusterman. Spit it out, Shannon. I originally read Scythe and Thunderhead, and then I fell off the face of the world and did not read The Toll. So the Toll is on my self destruct list, and I decided that I would have to reread Scythe and Thunderhead in order to read The Toll. So I reread this and I forgot just how much I loved this. I knew I gave it 5 stars before, and I was worried it wouldn't live up to it, but I flew through this in like a day. I love this world. I love these characters. I definitely am so glad that I'm rereading this trilogy so I can finish it off. Although I think there's a new book, The Gleanings, which is the fourth book. I don't know if that's part of the main trilogy or like a novella. I haven't looked into it because I'm trying to not spoil myself. But yeah, to be fair, I think is this the only reread I've done this year? I think this is the only reread I've done. But even if it wasn't, I mean, 5 stars, loved it. Can't wait to move on to Thunderhead and then finally finish The Toll, so I don't have to get rid of it because I do not want to get rid of this series without having read it. And going by the fact I 5 starred the first 2 books, I have hopes that these are all going to be 5 stars and I can keep them on my shelf. So yeah, Scythe. The next question is genre you are loving or reading the most. And my most read genre this year is romance at 33.3%. But I will say that I'm having the most fun with fantasy because, as I said before, um, the Final Empire Mistborn has gotten me back into a fantasy mood. It's made me just be nostalgic about all the fantasy I used to read, and now I'm like in a fantasy mood. I am loving what I'm reading. So even though romance is my most read, and I do have fun with a lot of romances, I would say fantasy is what I'm loving most at the moment because I've just rekindled my love for that genre this year, and I hope to continue that reading mood throughout the rest of the year. The next question is new releases you haven't read yet but want to, and I have 2 here that I already own. So I have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert, and I have The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. These are 2 books that I already own that I haven't read yet but want to read. I bought this when it came out, was meant to read it in January, didn't. This came in a book subscription box, so yeah, these are definitely 2 that I want to get to. I also have The Writing Retreat by Julia. Oh goodness, I've forgotten her last name. It will be on screen. This is also a release that came out that I had my eye on but haven't read yet, and all 3 of these are hopefully going to be read by the end of the year, considering I own 2 and I own the Writing Retreat in Kindle form. So I own all 3 of these books. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to read these before the end of the year. The next question is most anticipated for the second half of the year, and I have loads, but I narrowed it down to the ones I think I'm going to be most likely to read. So we have Everyone Here is Lying by Shari Lapina. Shari Lapina is one of those authors that I haven't had a 5 star from, I don't think. I think it's all been 4 or under. But I have just the most fun reading their books. They're fun, thrilling, psychological suburbia mysteries that are not quite high stakes, but feel high stakes when you're reading it. and I just have fun. Like, this for me is like easy reading. This for me is, if I'm going to a beach and I'm not reading romance, I will pick up a Shari Lapina book because I know I can easily focus, easily have a good time. I don't know, there's just something about her writing that just makes me happy, and I fly through her thrillers. So I'm definitely interested in this one. Obviously, I have to go with the Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely adore V.E. Schwab's work. I have a little shelf here. I also have a little cross stitch pattern that I made for The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is so cute. Like, I'm so proud of this. So yeah, I love V.E. Schwab's work, and I cannot wait to pick up Threads of Power. I know that I'm going to love it. I just know that I'm going to love it, and it'll be nice to return to the world. And finally, on this list, we have Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. Read Delilah Green, read Astrid Parker, loved them both. I need to know Iris's story now. So these are like the three books that I definitely think that I am going to pick up by the end of the year. So the three books that I own and haven't read yet, and these three books are hopefully all going to be read by the end of the year. I also need to do my self destruct books as well. So this might be a challenge, but it's fine as long as I'm having fun. The next question is biggest surprise. And for this, I'm going with this book here. I'm pretty sure the way that you pronounce this is The Psalms of the Wild Bill, but I could be hella wrong, and I apologize. This is by Becky Chambers. I got this gifted to me. I don't read a lot of sci fi, and I was nervous going into this because it was so short and I don't read this genre. Absolutely loved it. I actually have the sequel ready to be read. Loved it. It blew me away. I did not expect to fall in love with these characters and the robot the way that I did. Like, oh, it was just so good. And now I just want to go sit and drink tea and be happy. But yeah, I absolutely adored this. I cannot wait to move on to the sequel. And I was so surprised. I think last year, The Martian was my biggest surprise, or was that the year before? The Martian was my biggest surprise one year too, and that was also sci-fi. And I feel like maybe I just need to give this genre more of a chance, because the biggest surprises that I have is when I read this genre. So I obviously like it, and I've had good experiences with it, but I'm just so intimidated by the science fiction genre. But I love this and highly recommend it. The next question is biggest disappointment, and for this, I am going with How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I am so glad I did not buy this. 1 star, I was so let down by this book. Like, oh, I don't even want to talk about it because I was so let down. I believe last year I had Hyde by Kirsten White on this spot, and this disappointed me more than that book did. I just had so much high hopes going into this, and it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. Quite like Hyde, actually, but this just didn't work for me. I listened to this on audiobook. The audiobook was fine, but the story, the plot, the characters, I just didn't like any of it. And I'm quite surprised I actually finished this because I was this close to DNF in it. But because I had it on audiobook, I was like, I'm already, like, it's not going to take me long on audio. So I finished it and I regretted it immediately. I am so sorry if this is your favorite book. No shade, no hate. I just did not enjoy this at all. Next question is new favorite character, and for this, I have to go with Sazed from the Mistborn series. I love Sazed. He's so wise and chill and empathetic, and just such a well written character. Also, I feel like every time he speaks, I'm interested. And like, I feel like he is the perfect person to have a conversation with that would lead a conversation. Like, I feel like you would talk to Sazed and you would start with one thing, and then 5 hours later you'd be on to like 50 million different topics, but you'd be having a good time. I just feel like he is someone that I would love to have a tea party with. And after what happened in this book, I would like to give him a cuddle. I just love Sazed. And also, I feel like the next question is a book that made you cry. I didn't have an answer to this until last night when I finished this goddamn book. I didn't have an answer for this, so I was going to leave it blank and say nothing made me cry this year. And I wasn't like absolutely floods of tears with this book, but a tear did fall. So I guess that makes this book count. And yeah, loved Seized, and a tear fell at the ending of this book. And I can't wait to move on to the next book in the series, well, trilogy slash series. Absolutely love it. The next question is a book that made you happy, and for this, I'm going with Falls Boys by Penelope Douglas. Don't get me wrong, there are some hard hitting topics in this book, but overall, returning to these world, because this is a spin-off from the Bully series, so these are the kids of the generation of the Bully series. So returning to this world with new characters while also seeing glimpses of the characters you watched fall in love be adults, like, it just made me so happy. I got to see Jared Trent, I got to see Jax, like everyone was here and accounted for. I just loved it. It made me so happy seeing the generation pass and also be interested and also being introduced to the new generation.
Hi, hello. So for some strange reason, my audio cut out in the last couple of minutes of this video. I do apologise for this. This does not normally happen. The next question was the most beautiful book that you have received or purchased this year, and I went with The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten because it is absolutely stunning. Here, look how pretty it is. Then the last question of this tag was the books you would like to get to before the end of the year. I picked the 3 books that are on my self-destruct, which is Cemetery Boys by Adrian Thomas, Devil's House by John Darnell, and The Toll by Neil Susterman. I'm so sorry this audio file corrupted, and I hope you made it to the end of the video. If you did, thank you so very much for watching. Remember to stay safe, happy and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye!
Pick it up from the top.